Hello, friends. Welcome to Worldbuild with us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with pugnaciously putrescent Chris Prunty.
Thought you said it was on cue.
And here with us again is Daniel Quinn. On today's episode, we are finishing up our deep dive into the Caliphate of Feasts and Famine by focusing on geography, points of interest, and the capital itself. But before we do that, gentlemen, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about something that we missed in our last episode, which is the God Pacted. And I had an idea that, well, we had this whole cast that kind of had the misfortune of deigning whether or not people would be, blessed or cursed or be part of which caste system, essentially. And I thought to myself, I'm like, why don't we have them just be the God Pacted? I think that makes the most sense.
They can see the futures.
Moreover, I was thinking that they're essentially given pairs, one at a time, right? And every two babies that are born, you're essentially just given, like, here's a baby, here's a baby. They perform aruspicy, they take some kind of animal, gut it, and they're like fishing around through its intestines, trying to see the future. And they read, let's say, like a very fixed point in time, like 20 or 30 years into the future. And they read that person's fortune and misfortune. And then one of them has to be the misfortune and the other has to be the fortune. And so each of them choose, like, okay, you go in this cast, you go in this cast, and there you go. What do you think?
I like that. Now, would you also say that seeing how one is given the fortune, one's given the misfortune, are the God Pacted also bestowing a little bit of a scale tipping motion in that?
I think that they should. I think that they have their, like, kind of like how Supreme Court justices have their own independent bias when they're supposed to represent the pure neutrality of the law, but obviously, I mean,
they have their own beliefs.
Exactly. And so I imagine that there are some God Pacted out there who are like, hey, you know what? We have been in a boom too long, and thus we should really kind of start focusing on getting back into the famine part of the feast and famine. So you know what? I'm going to start pushing the more, the more fortunate ones, they're going to be put in the lower caste, so they're going to live their misfortunate lives. And the ones who are like, this one, if we got put in the fortune cast, I mean, he's okay, and then bam, there you go.
Doesn't amount to a whole bunch.
Exactly. So this way you have kind of a way where you're tipping the scales, and it's on an individual basis for each God Pact, essentially. Yeah.
I mean, what I like about that is it explains why the inequality works. So, if these people at the bottom are really the ones determining your fate, then you have to respect them, right, for fear of pissing them off,
And also at the same time, you kind of like fear them and dislike them because it's like, oh, that's my lot in life. I understand that, but at the same time,
fuck you
for putting me here. That kind of thing.
I mean, it also asks questions about, like bribery doesn't work with them because, again, they're assigned to live in a lower class where.
Right, because like if you see someone who's God Pacted walking around with like rich, fabulous robes and everything like that, you're going to look at them and be like, hold on.
They're corrupt.
Wait a minute.
Clearly corrupt. Yeah, exactly.
The other thing that I wanted to question about that is, can they put their thumb on the scale, as it were, and take some of the misfortune that was going to be in the other person's life and push it towards that person's life?
I don't think that they have like luck control like Black Cat from Spider-Man. I think it's more a matter of they just see good and bad, like this is if your life goes this way for both people, and this is how your life goes this way for both people, and then they, based on that information, they then decide to choose how to do it, essentially.
Black Cat had that power?
Early. Yeah.
Oh.
She
I knew like
ability.
Domino had that kind of weird thing going on.
She's just very lucky. Black Cat had the ability to like hex people and like cause misfortune.
Oh, like
Hence
what? Black Cat. Okay, I get
exactly.
it. Haha.
Speaking of Black Cats, let's get into the rest of our episode today, which has nothing to do with Black Cats. Now, each of us should have approached today's episode with one, aspect of geography within the nation, and which basically means like give me a point of interest, a geographical location that's interesting. 2, a general point of interest that could be like a natural wonder, a world wonder, something really interesting about the general country, and then something very specific about the capital itself. It doesn't necessarily, it's kind of like when we did Handasa, it doesn't necessarily have to be, like, oh, well, this is the statue of so-and-so in the capital, but matter if it's, I want it to be on a hillside, stuff like that.
This is a really good sandwich place.
Man, don't get me started about the sandwich places.
So, who wants to go first?
Yeah, so for my capital idea, it might be related to what you're talking about with the kind of the God-pacted people in the lower class. I had the concept of maybe somewhere in the lower class there is a section of people who take on the suffering of others, and that's like to be revered, and it gives them some benefit for doing that, and it's for the sake of the rest of the society. I'm thinking of, say like in Game of Thrones, you have the faith militant who are kind of into that kind of stuff, the self-flagellation and the pain, or in any other, kind of culture where you have that situation that they're absorbing pain in order to create a sacrifice.
Right, like kind of like a self-flagellant person or something like that. What would you call them? Do you have an idea, or?
Possibly like the absolvers, because they're absolving the sins of others through themselves.
That's cool. Do they have like magical powers, or is this more like societal? Like they're basically looked at on. Actually,
I think it's cultural.
It's like I could see it also going as a long form ritual of where just like these people are suffering, these people are sacrificing for the good of the nation.
Okay,
whether it's working or not. That's
Exactly.
Hold on. I got an idea. Can we make this not a caste thing? It's a matter of like, hey, you can at any time reject your caste, but you have to be an absolver as a result.
Oh, I like that.
So if you're let's say that you're like in the upper caste and you're like, I'm so sick of this lifestyle, or let's say that you're like embarrassed or shamed and like this is
giving up your destiny.
Yeah, and this is your punishment. It's to be one without destiny, but so you're essentially taking on the misfortune and the destiny of the misspent destiny of others, or something
like that. Yeah. So it's like it's someone outside the caste system who's still part of their society because they've given up their destiny.
Exactly. That's a really cool idea, Daniel.
Cool.
And I mean, if we're starting with the capital, then one thing that I was kind of thinking about, I kind of want to just make it real simple and real like easy, and it's geographical. And I was thinking about like, okay, do we want it to be on like an oasis? Do I want it to be in like a hill? And I'm like, you know what? Screw all that. I want the city to be sinking. I wanted it to be really dramatic and like think Florida or like that giant.
You're gonna go for Venice before.
No.
Florida's all about the sinkholes.
Yeah, Florida or like that town in Russia, that city in Russia that's being eaten by giant sinkholes. Basically that, but the desert is eating the city. And also, I mean, one of the original gods was the god of hunger. So, I mean, in this case, it's metaphorical. The city is literally hungry and eating buildings and eating sections of it time after time. And I just thought, like, okay, that's really cool and that's really interesting because now you also have like slums that are or like lower class areas that are basically in sunken parts of the city and that are being eaten away. And then I don't know, I think there's a really interesting metaphor there as well, like where you have the inner corruption of like what this type of society actually does to itself, not to get too, hoity-toity, but
Well, I mean, it speaks to the mentality of the people who live there. Like when you're dealing with sinkholes, right? I'm thinking of when I lived in Florida in Deltona, and we had a sinkhole that opened up in the middle of the one street in our city, and it swallowed, some houses, and it was there for years. They filled it in, and then it opened up again, and did the same thing again.
That's just what happens.
Yeah, you start to accept
when you build
that
on
destiny.
limestone, this is what happens.
Right, like you start to accept the destiny, and you start to have a certain like stoicism towards it, which these people then would have as a result of it.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it gets destroyed and then we rebuild it.
Right.
It happens.
Yeah. Or did you guys
Like
see
on fire for.
Did you guys see the in Japan there was a massive sinkhole that like ate a building, and then it was like taken care of in less than 24 hours.
That's
it's
insane.
Like, you see like the time lapse, like how?
It took us 8 years.
Yeah.
My entire high school and undergrad career to get rid of these sinkholes.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of what I wanted to do in the city. Like, yes, it's a magnificent, beautiful city, but it's also being eaten by, from the inside out. Chris, what did you have for your capital part?
For the capital?
Yeah.
So I actually kind of want to go into the geography, but I'll do the aspect of it of the capital. And what I wanted to do was bathhouses.
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, that's really interesting as well. Okay, let's stop and think about bathhouses for a while.
They're political locations.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like, because these are going to be like shared between both castes, or is it a matter of?
Yeah, and you're also when you're in the bathhouse, you're naked, so it's all at the door.
Right. I like that.
Well,
except for the grime that's getting in the pool.
So it's funny you mentioned. I had some friends who went to Morocco, and when they were in Casablanca, I think they were in Casablanca, they went to, apparently one of the big things that you do is go to a bathhouse, and people like rub you down and give you like the most like in-depth like massage and clean. Like they said that it was a really cool experience. Personally, I would never do that because that sounds horrifying to me.
You don't want to be touched by random strangers in a hot, sweaty place,
right? But let's think about that. And it's like, is this a place where both of the castes come together, or is it a matter of maybe they do, and maybe that's where they can kind of sit and talk to one another, and but there's also at the same time,
I mean, public bathhouse. So
right, but there's also like the servants or like the people who are there to wash you and give you the grand experience. Or maybe is that something that this is a cultural thing where everyone deserves a good clean, like a good wash in the bathhouse, something like that.
Yeah.
Is it maybe that's the thing. Maybe that is it's what's the word? It's independent from your caste.
Yeah.
Like
I like
no.
that. Yeah.
The base level of humanity for these people is you deserve a good clean.
Except absolvers are not allowed.
Oh man, okay.
Oh, that sucks. That sucks.
Because they have no destiny.
They
They can't be washed away of their sins. Yeah.
Yeah, and let's say the God pact it too. Let's just toss them in there,
Yeah.
because that
Yeah,
way,
they shouldn't be fraternizing.
because not only that, but that's when you can like kind of get in the ear and be like, hey, if you do this for me, so
And they don't. That's probably too much vanity for them. Even,
right,
even that.
they're treated as pariah from bathhouses.
Maybe in their little momonastery, which I'm now
their own.
assuming they have their own little bathhouse.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to use the public ones.
They
They're nice.
wash themselves.
There we go. That makes sense. I could
The
see
water's kind of cold.
Yeah. There's not much soap.
that. Yeah. Cold wouldn't be necessarily a bad thing if you're talking about like
A desert.
a more desert or more hotter place.
Oh, true.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. I think there's a certain degree of cold that it doesn't matter how hot it is. It hurts.
Yeah.
Same with hot.
It's just unpleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we've got a city that's sinking. We've got public bathhouses, and we've got absolvers. Actually, Chris, let's go to the bathhouses again. Where do they get the water from?
So that's actually where my geography
nice.
thing comes from, which is
Segueing
fucking
so good at podcasting.
So, my idea for the geography was based off of Thor's well / the Devil's Sinkhole, but also there is this river in Peru that is actually around 120 degrees, 16 feet deep, 20 feet wide, and 120 degrees.
Jesus.
And that's what I wanted, this hot-ass river pouring out of this hole to be coming from. And I wanted it to be like this whole thing of kind of like the Icelandic baths where they have like that mud that is
geothermal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted that to be a big thing that comes from there. And I want it to also be maybe don't drink the water. That's the thing you don't want to do.
So it's funny you should mention that, because as you were saying that, I'm immediately thinking, I'm like, okay, this is perfect for feast and famine because you have plentiful water, but it has limited uses. So it's not like you can drink it. It's not like
Maybe
you
it's
can...
too salty, or what would be like something about it that makes it like
Sulfur?
Yeah,
no,
sulfur,
because then
sure.
you're not really smelling nice after.
Yeah.
Well, then this could be the more plentiful thing. People who use the public bathhouses, they smell like sulfur. But the rich guys have perfume.
Oh.
That's not a bad idea.
like that.
I mean, that's something that can be.
Because maybe it's the fact that it's really hot and it's cleansing that way. And the sulfur is just like, you have to deal with that. Yeah.
Rub some sand in it.
Right.
Right, and maybe that's the difference. Maybe after the baths, you're clean, but then in order to get the smell out, do you rub dirt in your wound?
Fresh sand.
Like oh
Clean
man,
sand.
I'd rather smell like sand than sulfur. And then for the rich people, like, what do you mean? I've got like orchid elixirs going on. It's fine.
I could see like a weird saying. We all come out the baths out smelling the same.
It works though. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I really relate and respect about this particular culture is that the castes, even though they all understand that they're different and they treat themselves accordingly, they all have a kind of same mutual understanding and respect for one another. And I like the aspect of the bathhouses and, the hot sulfurous shit coming out, because it's like, yeah, we understand that we're all the same. We also understand that castes exist and we have to live this life. So I'm going to go put some perfume on, and you can go rub dirt in your wounds. Go rub dirt in your open wounds.
Oh, it's a shame. All right. See you later. Don't look me in the eye.
I said, don't look me in the eye.
Not a joke.
Yeah. All right. What do we got next? Daniel, what did you have for a geographic idea?
So I was thinking outside the city, further in like the savanna desertous landscape, you've gotten a fair distance out of the city, so now you're kind of like in a danger zone in terms of being too far away from civilization. Mm-hmm. So there's this valley that seems to be full of like plant life, and particularly lots of flower life. And I was thinking kind of back to how orchids can be chameleons and pretend to be other plants in order to fool insects. And I also thought of this particular type of desert plant called the devil's claw. It's pretty like crazy looking. That would populate.
Yeah, I've seen those before. Those are really cool.
Yeah,
they look like snakes or something like that when you see like what is it called? The skeleton?
Like the
husk?
skeleton of it, the husk, yeah.
Sure, whatever.
Yeah.
We're not botanists here, folks.
So it's like full of these
I took a
plants.
botany
You
class.
go in there because you think it'll be safe and pleasant.
It's an oasis.
Right. It's got water, but then they also have maybe a hallucinogenic effect, and they're also semi-intelligent, and so it's a bad thing to be down there.
Wait, hold on. Back up.
Yeah.
What's
Hallucinogenic effect.
So I'm thinking like two things. Okay, so I'm thinking back to like the one X-Files episode with the fungus where they got lost and then the fungus basically ate them because it's got this hallucinogenic effect.
Okay.
So these plants, maybe they can like emit that stuff in order to get you in there and you think you're seeing other stuff and then they eat you.
Oh, so we got spores going
Yeah.
on. Okay. So that's so they basically maybe they make them like walk around essentially in like circles forever until they
Until
die.
they die, yeah. Maybe they think they're drinking water, but they're eating
just
like sand,
It's a beautiful field of flowers, and then you see the skeletons.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and they probably see like the desert claw type things as like animals or something like that. That'd be really cool. Actually.
So maybe the plants don't even move or anything.
Or
They're just plants. Yeah.
They just look at them like it's like a Don Quixote moment where they're like, the plants are dragons, and they're just like slicing at them and stuff like that.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Oh, but I do like the rumor.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just like, no, there's dragons.
Oh,
Yeah.
man,
So they
that's
think
even
that's what
better
it is.
because you have like the one survivor who, for whatever reason, gets away.
And he had an hallucination.
His brain boiled till it was no longer able to process the
No,
hallucination.
it's a quill. It's a quill. That's exactly what happened.
that
Like
works.
either one part of that symbiote like survived and the other did not. Like maybe the quill took the hit for the rest of it and just like kind of fell off. And the human was like, "Oh, I gotta get out of here now."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's really fun. So we've got, and now is this just one area or are there like dotted oases?
Maybe they
oases?
form a dangerous boundary. Like there's a lot of them. More of these plants find a way to grow, like near water sources, way out in the desert.
Oh man. Okay. That's
Oh,
so
and
it's
they
not
could be
just
carried on travelers or seeds potentially.
Oh, so it's like kind of okay. Maybe the survivors are let go back to whatever, and then like oh man, I'm really thirsty all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And then like the seeds bloom and you're just,
Oh,
like
I love
bursting
that.
inside
Yes.
you. Yeah. All right.
Some
And we're
annihilation.
back to body horror.
Look, we will never not go back to body horror. Okay, I love body horror. So what you're saying, Daniel,
Yes.
is that you come across this oasis, and it's just like a wall wonder that you're experiencing, some kind of a wonder
Whatever you
wall
need.
in Oasis.
Okay.
Right. I get it.
Yeah. And then you're in trouble.
Hate you so much.
That went right over Daniel's head, and I'm glad that you got the band Oasis.
Oh,
Wonderwall.
and Wonderwall's a song of theirs. See,
Yeah.
my music didn't start until like I listened to Garbage
year ago.
So
Oh.
Wow.
yeah, like 1998.
Okay, you're like Billie. You're like Billie Eilish. You're like, who the fuck's Van Halen?
I love her.
Which, to be fair, Van Halen sucks. They have like one good song.
And Billy's awesome.
They do, yeah. Billie, I
Taking
do like
some-
Billie Eilish. She's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Deep shots at Van Halen.
Fuck Van Halen. They're so boring. They're like everything wrong with 80s hair metal. It's like, that's
There
not
is
true.
nothing wrong with 80s hair.
There's so much wrong with 80s.
There's
hair
so
metal.
much wrong with the 80s.
Yeah, that's true. We're not getting it. The political podcast will be next week. So, all right. Geography.
The world built for us will be on next week.
Yeah. And that's when we're canceled. All right. So I love your Wonderwall Oasis idea. I think that's great. I think that for me, I think I'm the only one left. I wanted to do some kind of like an underground. Again, going back to an Oasis, I wanted to do like a cool underground Oasis type thing. But at the same time, I was thinking I want this to be. It's not just any old Oasis that's underground. Like that's cool. That's whatever. But I also want it to attract. There's something about it that just attracts the most dangerous game. So when you're sent out to be a hero, you're like, look, you want to prove yourself. You go to the underground Oasis and you hunt down whatever's there. And most of the time you don't come back except for the heroes.
Is it one spot?
Yes, it's like a legendary area. It's essentially like a drinking hole where like, you see like but like where all the mythical stuff hangs out. There's like the Lion of Nimia hanging out with like a manticore, and they're all just like looking at each other like, look, this is the only water we got.
Do they live under in the cave itself? Like
I think some of them could, but in my mind I imagine that this is basically where you go to drink. If you're like there's something about it. Maybe there's
Some really good minerals.
maybe the water's special.
or maybe even like there's I was thinking it's kind of like maybe like the waters of Mount Olympus type thing where it's like there's special and maybe that's also a thing we could add in a kind of a holy grail aspect to it as well, where you're a hero whether you go, and maybe that's it. Maybe you're not there to kill the monster. Maybe you're there to get the water.
Maybe that's why the animals are so strange, because they drink from it.
And they're essentially mutants at that point. Yeah. Well, yeah.
And now it's
perfect.
a radioactive desert.
Yep.
Did you just agree to that?
What? No. It didn't really.
So close to sci-fi.
Yeah,
no.
So
No.
close.
One
How
day.
is it? It's radioactive in the
Baby
way that
steps.
magic is radioactive. Yes.
Yeah, I love that in Discworld. High magic building, you got to shield that stuff,
can just-
otherwise it gets weird.
Slowly steer it towards dying Earth.
I mean, that's that. I'm fine with stuff like that because you have like China Meeville does stuff like that in Boss Log.
Yeah.
So you can do like weird torque and chaos magic. Like that's fine.
Fucking love torque bombs.
Yeah, exactly. Or actually,
Came back gray.
maybe that's what it is. Maybe this water is not water at all, but like chaos and magic, or like a font of. Actually, hold on.
Ironically, when the god of chaos was born, it also died.
At the same time. So hold on. I just got an idea. This is essentially a leak in the universe where it is, how we had our shards of reality from a couple episodes ago. It's basically that, but like the sludge version of that.
It's runoff.
It's essentially runoff where you drink from it and it's not like you're like, oh, I am the paragon. It's like, oh no, I just got mixed with a whole bunch of bad things all at once. So it's like, that's why you have like weird animals and weird like manticores and stuff like that.
So do heroes know not to drink from this thing, or do they want to because it might give them something weird?
It's kind of like going into a reactor with a spider. You're hoping for the
Okay.
best,
But you
but
never
you
know.
might just die of cancer.
Oftentimes
Sounds
you'll
right.
just die of cancer.
Yes, but
Yeah.
you know that one time you become
Gotta roll
Spider-Man.
Oh, maybe it's just like, and this is how we have the Harpy Queen. She was very sick, and our hero managed to get the water, and it healed her, but it also turned her into a bird person.
A lot of the monsters might actually be heroes who never returned because they became monsters.
Oh,
That's a
I
great
like that.
idea.
Put some
Oh,
tragedy in
oh,
that.
yeah. And we
It drank from the water.
And we were talking about a couple episodes ago about that idea that, you know, each monster is kind of individual and legendary in that way. Yeah, and then that's why when you have heroes become physically and mentally twisted.
Like a guy and his horse went there, the horse drank from the water, he took a sip, and they merged together into a horrific...
And to a centaur! Yes. Yeah, or a mantar, because I've been seeing a lot of those recently, and they're great. Yeah.
A centaur tar. Just...
Have you seen the mantar, by the way?
No.
Where it's half man, half man?
What?
Hold on.
Is it just a guy running on fours with a torso where the head should be?
Man bottom? That's gross.
Oh no!
I like how wrestling show.
What the hell? That is hideous.
That was made in God's shadow.
I know.
Oh God! It's sitting down. It's
so
horrifying.
gross.
Why did someone make a statue?
Ew, they made a 3D print of this?
Look!
What's wrong with them?
Torso followed by torso.
Oh,
Okay, wait a minute. And I don't know why I don't think this when I look at centaurs, but that should have 2 dicks.
Oh no, it would. 2 spots.
It should.
But centaurs don't.
Is its back, like its lower back is a butt? Is that how it works? As well as its normal butt?
Yes.
It's so hideous.
It's pretty great.
How does the female version of this work?
It's just that with boobs.
Yeah.
But then what
So
about
wait,
down
does it
here?
have 4 titties?
That's
then?
what I mean.
Oh,
right.
good question.
And then where would its... Okay.
Asking
To
the
be
real
fair-
question.
To be fair, we can't see the chesticle area of that, so
It could be nipples down there.
Exactly.
Right.
You don't know if there's nipples.
Yeah, and there could be a butt behind this.
Also, where do pants go on a centaur?
God.
If you were to craft jeans for a centaur,
needs
where
2
would it
pairs
go?
of pants,
No,
though.
you just put on a skirt.
Like a long...
Yeah, it's a kilt or a skirt.
Yeah.
It makes the most sense.
That's horrifying.
All right,
And
let's
also,
let's get back.
Horrifying.
that monster anime told me that's what centaurs would wear.
All right. So I think our font of monsters is a really fun, very specific legendary area that we can kind of get into. What else do we have left? We have
Point of interest.
Speaking of, yeah, mine didn't mean to be that thing.
You
but
did
it
it.
just so happened to be, and I have a different one, but I want someone else to go first. Chris, go ahead.
Oh, damn it, that's a hard act to follow. Yeah, I know.
And might as well get the weakest one out of the way.
I fucking hate you. I hate you so much. So for point of interest, I wanted it to be some sort of sacrificial pit or some sort of altar that things are sacrificed on. I wasn't thinking that they were the type where they did maybe blood sacrifice so much for their people and everything, but maybe war captives. I'm getting a very warlike vibe of where if they conquer another nation, they're doing something with the god hearts and those things.
It's funny you mentioned that. My point of interest is very specifically tied to that.
Was it going to be a lot like the trophy room of god
That
hearts?
that is literally exactly what I had in mind, yes.
Mine is where they are broken.
What do you mean?
So rather than them being looked upon, think of it as no, they don't. We are not going to risk them surviving or being used. We're going to smash them upon this anvil.
That is perfect. I'm just going to go with mine now because it is a perfect segue. And also, I feel like we're going to have to talk about ours simultaneously.
Yeah.
Mine is a tower it's kind of a mix between the Tower of Pisa and the Tower of Aliabad, which is essentially think of a tower that has a bunch of alcoves or arches, and then in each of those,
Oh yeah, I do know this.
in each of those tower or each of those alcoves, there is a god heart on display. You can go and look at it. You can go and touch it, what have you, and you can go
Smell
worship it. Essentially, all of the god hearts are there from all of these subjugated nations and countries and little tribes and stuff like that under the empire that is the Caliphate of Feast and Famine. And it is called the Tower of the Wretched. Because and you can still, like I said, if you're in the Caliphate, but you're not worshiping the god of Feast and Famine, you can still go and visit your god heart. Except they've made it incredibly uncomfortable and incredibly dangerous. So imagine that you have the alcove and there's just enough space for you to kneel and pray, but it's your feet are basically dangling off the side. You have no room. It's uncomfortable. You're supposed to feel small and insignificant in the shadow of the god of feast and famine. And I think that when you talk about, like your pit, I had something kind of like, oh, it'd be cool to kind of have that idea. It's like, these are too dangerous. So in my mind, what I'm thinking is that we create a fake god heart for the ones that you smash. Like they exist, and we're going to pretend that they still are there. But in your place, like, that, like, no, these have been banished.
Oh, so they're actually destroyed?
They're destroyed or created or turned into relics, whatever.
So is the pit secret? Like,
So
I think, yes, at this point, I think it's a matter of it has to be.
all right. Yes, because you shouldn't
Or
make
not.
it. No, you couldn't. You don't want it to be. I feel like you're getting a great display of the tower of that, something that I wanted from the pit, of where just like your god is insignificant to mine. We have beaten you, kneel.
Yes. Kneel before Zod.
Yeah. The pit that I had in mind, I was just thinking of, that well that in 300 they kick down the Persian.
See, I was actually thinking of the Dark Knight Rises, where
very similar.
The pit that Bane comes from, basically. Yeah. Yeah.
I was picturing something like that deep that people can still kind of like lurk in, and there is a way out, but it's kind of like guarded. And I wanted it to be as part of the sacrifice. Like there was this kind of iron, not dais, but kind of like this platform that people can go on that is suspended with chains and everything, and it's there that the god heart can be smashed and it's rained down into the pit.
That's really cool.
That's cool.
So
But-
like, below it is just like god ash,
Fragments.
basically. So it's like you're not even worth creating a relic for.
And it's also the people who are sacrificed in this way have a very special way of being sacrificed. They're not murdered, their throats aren't slit, they are fed, they are given water, and then they are thrown into the pit. And they starve to death.
among the
then-
ashes of
yes.
their gods.
That's incredible, and I feel like there's definitely some kind of weird monster. That
Oh,
comes
yeah,
from
I
that
totally
as well,
want.
for sure.
Do they take, when they sacrifice people, would they take, like, the high priest of that religion and then sacrifice them so that then they'll be down there?
Ooh. I feel like it's all those who they feel cannot be subjugated, or they are just like,
Like their
oh,
champion.
you're currently saying that you're faithful to us, but you know what? We're not going to take the risk. Or, you know what? We looked into the future, and you're not as faithful as you say.
Yeah.
So with all this said, I'm going back. I actually don't think this should be secret. If anything, it should be. And also, like, for some reason, I'm also thinking of the breaking on the wheel. So you're fed and you're nourished and you're done well, and then they break you on the wheel and then they toss you into the pit. It's like this is when you're not worth being made into a relic. You're worth ash and dust, and like we do not wish for you to exist anymore. It's not even a matter of like you're subjugated. It's like you're erased.
And I didn't want to go into it, but yes, I do feel like something in that pit is just like, hey, did you notice with the last God Heart that when we pushed all of those people in, we heard something respond? Do you think we should look into that?
Oh, it's like a well of echoes and stuff like that. That's horrifying, and I love it.
It's like, it's a shadow of these gods forming some kind of vengeful entity over time.
It's forming into I think we originally had an idea that was kind of like, instead of the God Blob, it would have been the Nothing from like...
From Neverending Story?
yes. It's the absence of a god.
I love that.
Maybe this is where like weird oozes come from and stuff like that.
Or a spirit world, like, of some sort. Like, I don't know if you have this not in the sense of, like, another plane, but some kind of, like, shadow of things that have passed that are still bound to this particular realm.
I'm also just picturing one really bad day, just like, hey, I think a sinkhole got into the well, and I think something leaked out.
Oh, that is
bad.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's a great idea.
the built-in
and it's in the
hooks.
city, so it would happen.
Oh man, maybe they just built it over a sinkhole.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe maybe that was entirely on purpose. Where they're like, yeah, there's like a suspended wrought iron platform, and they're like, it's just so happens to be above a sinkhole. It's like, fuck it, this is because I mean, like, look at how people like got rid of their like trash and. Oh, hold on. I'm bringing this all the way the fuck back. All of this god ash, all of this debris comes down.
Top of a bathhouse. No, go on.
No. Flows underground, comes out into the chaos sludge, and then, like, they don't know it.
Is that the source of it?
That's the source of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not some cosmic anomaly. It is entirely... It's pollution, and so it's like...
From the destruction of
they're
gods.
creating
It's
their
some
own
god
monsters.
runoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
That's cool. And then you'd you could, if people know about this, there could be enemies of the Empire who try to break in and get fragments of their god back. You know, like
a last...
Oh, like weird
by using the
sewer rat
underground
people,
yeah,
or like
yeah.
scavengers and stuff like that.
Morlock kind of people trying to get in there, or I don't know.
You say Morlock?
I was thinking of like spelunking.
Yeah, or like
where you're,
archaeologists even.
Yeah, because I was picturing the underground oasis. Like, there's a cavern system because
Right.
I'm seeing a cavern system due to the sinkholes, all of this stuff going on, the volcanic activity. We have like those lava tube caves going
on. It would
on.
be dangerous, but it would be worth it to get your god back before it's
Oh,
broken.
And then, of course, there's going to be Forgotten down there as well. So you're going to be, there's expeditions and delving and oh, be careful.
Okay, just a brief question. Yeah. So, it's magma when it's underground.
Yes.
So if it's underground in a cave, is it lava or magma?
If it's underground, it's still magma. If it surfaces or hits air, essentially.
Yeah, but there's air in the cave.
Yeah, but I see your point.
Yeah.
At that point, it's lava because it's hitting air. It's essentially.
Okay, so it's not magma.
Right.
Okay.
Because let's say you're in a tunnel, and then you feel you if you were in a tunnel that was that hot,
you'd be dead. Yeah.
You'd be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're God packed, or maybe not. Who knows? God pack of lava. Or magma. So for the sinkhole / god prison, or where they are broken upon the wheel, I was thinking that we can have it like a waste disposal area, a little bit outside of the city on a tectonically safe area, because maybe the first one was in the city, and
then they were like, "Oh, fuck that!" Like,
not good. Not good.
Yeah, we can't have our massive display of dominance just be, oh well, not canceled today. There's a sinkhole. Sorry, guy. Like the sinkhole grew a little bit.
Ignore the aboleth.
Yeah. Oh man, aboleths are so cool though, and they also have no place in our setting whatsoever.
I'm just saying random aboleth.
All right.
Aboleth dragon.
Like illithid kind of insect creature.
They're
bugs,
like
fish.
Aboleths are the fish monsters
Yeah.
that illithid fight all the time.
Yes.
Who come from the future, escaping the past, or something.
I also thought that the illithids become aboleths after enough time. Or
There
something.
is a weird
so they're
thing.
from the future.
So
I
they're
see.
both fighting because they're both from the future, but they don't recall either of them being there. So it's kind of like,
also they're
whoa.
Okay, we're getting way off topic
Yeah.
here. Okay. Can we, instead of having them in the capital, can we just have them in a completely other city? Like maybe they kept trying to okay, this is where we're going to have the breaking on the wheel. And then another sinkhole popped up. And they're like, all right, you know what? After the third sinkhole, just move it down the, way down the way. We just conquered that new tectonically stable area. Hey, you know where it's all bedrock and shit? Let's go make it there.
It's now like the Fort Knox kind of prison. Like you were saying earlier, people might attempt to break into it.
That's a great idea.
Well, maybe they put it and they conquered some holy city and they put it in their holy fortress.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Also, now we have the idea that there is this once there, instead of there just being a random pit that has god juice in it, it's now you can actually go and actively dig in an archaeological area where it's hey, this is where the god hearts were. And so you have this weird kind of subculture and
And they didn't want of course they weren't going to do a full cleanup job, because they're just no, fuck that, I ain't going in there. Come on, man, let's cap it off and think about it later.
basic. And then of course over the years people have kind of dug their way back into it.
And then we have Morlocks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, basically.
Just really
New York.
Yeah. Or chuds. Can we have chuds instead?
What are chuds?
You know what chuds are?
No.
Oh my god. You
Are these
guys.
Chicago Morlocks?
Fucking Jersey Morlocks.
Jersey Morlocks. What would you call those?
Jorlocks.
Jorlocks.
I would just say they're
Jersey Morlocks.
They're Jersey.
No,
people
they're
from New
just,
Jersey.
They're just people from New Jersey. Yeah, exactly. To be fair, disclaimer, people from New Jersey who are getting mad right now, my wife is from New Jersey. Okay?
And also, I mean, you're from New Jersey. So.
Oh, no.
Chris is from New Jersey.
I am not from New Jersey. Also, fuck you, Newark, for the time that you didn't let me off on the train at the right time.
Newark, yes.
Yeah, I don't know your name, but you know what? He was actually helpful. Everyone else on that train, fuck you.
Because that guy wasn't from Newark.
Yes, he was trying to be helpful. No one else was.
All right. I'm pulling up. Yeah, I'm pulling up Chud, which is the film. It is about. Hold on, I have to get this. Right.
It stands for something. Children,
gentlemen.
So let's benefit. Chuds
are cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. A brilliant horror movie from 1984. And when I don't know if you saw Us, the new Jordan Peele movie. When they zoom in, one of the VHSs is Chud.
Oh my god!
And I lost my shit. I'm like, yeah, Chud. And
there were so many like little Easter eggs in that movie.
Yes, exactly.
So basically, these are Floridians, is what you're saying.
No, they're Chicago because
that's right.
Shuds. Well, it's I guess an sh noise, even though it's ch.
Right, it's from the Latin.
Chicago, they're Shuds, I guess.
Chicago's.
What?
I want a Chicago dog now. I'm sorry. Okay, so where were we? We were talking about Chuds.
I don't know. We got involved with the Chud talk and
waste disposal.
Oh, Daniel, you have your point of interest. Yes. we went off the rails with Chuds and Jersey moral
Floridians.
Floridians.
Okay, fun fact about Florida. Just one side note. Do you remember the Florida cannibal on bath salts?
Yeah. Of course.
Okay,
Floridian.
so there were no drugs in his system.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
People were like, "Oh, it's bath salts." Like,
nope.
Nah, he was just
ate that man's face.
Yeah.
He wasn't the homeless guy.
What are you supposed to do when you got a hankering for face?
I mean, you go on the streets of Florida.
Pork cheek, frankly.
Oh God.
Or goat's head stew, which is also very good. Yeah. Speaking of goat's head stew and cannibalism. Daniel, your point of interest.
So it's interesting because this connects to what you guys are talking about with the Godhearts. Well, with the Chuds that live where the Godheart fragments are, right? So I was thinking like from two perspectives. One, the city, we talked about balance in the sense that you've got like all the casts have to kind of keep things in balance, and both in their government and their culture. So I was wondering, well, where is the Godheart itself housed for their god? And so I was thinking of this, and I'll need your help kind of fleshing this out because I kept it kind of vague. This living edifice or building where the Godheart is inside of, that the God Pacted are allowed to enter and have to tend to because it grows or gets sick depending on the health of the culture.
Oh, that's kind of interesting. We didn't really think of Godhearts as necessarily living things, but I like the idea that it kind of has... Maybe, and again, I feel like this episode, everything's really kind of curtailing into one another. Maybe the sinkholes and stuff like that are a sign of sickness.
Of its sickness, yeah.
And people just don't understand that that's what's going on. And stuff
well, they don't even want the public to know because it could make a panic of some kind.
And it could visually be paired with your tower too, because I know your tower is a representation of their conquest almost, right?
Right.
But if there's another one that's like similar and it's a representation of their health, I don't know. But then to your point though, maybe if it's sick, you don't want them to see that.
Yeah.
Right?
In that sense, I was actually thinking that we could do like a citadel of some kind. Because again, we're doing like a big. It is a militaristic society. Why and what better place than to like hide someplace than in a citadel of some kind? You can have like a red fort situation, or even the Italian one.
One on the ocean.
Castile. No, it's Castile San Angelo. When we were in Rome, we saw it. Yeah,
that one. And then there's the one in France that is kind of like just built on an island, and you can only go at it when it's low tide.
Yeah, but I mean, we can't really do that here.
I know.
I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
But just a secluded citadel. It could be surrounded by sinkholes.
That's not a bad idea, actually. But I had an idea of a citadel in the city and stuff like that, and people kind of look up to it and whatnot. And it's a matter of like, oh, you're not getting into that place. Like, that is the last vestibule of...
I mean, maybe people don't even know what the living structure looks like because of its outer casing, you know.
Oh, it's kind of like a false edifice on the outside, and then on the inside it's maybe a...
And only the God Pacted go in there, the ones that can prophecy, and they're allowed to tend to it.
That's kind of... Or maybe there is, like a citadel on the outside, and then even further on the inside there is like a deeper heart. Kind of like, I don't know, let's say like the the Vatican.
Yeah.
The secret vaults,
It's very
or-
closed off to them. Yeah.
Well, I mean, have you ever been to the Vatican?
Yeah.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
you
we were.
with me.
Yeah.
Or maybe like
I disappeared.
they do.
They touched me.
Well, maybe like they do what
That's
the
years ago.
conclave does, where they have to get together at a certain time in that building.
Right, I was thinking of like where they buried
cardinals.
like the popes and stuff like that, where you go down underground.
Yeah,
and
maybe
whatnot.
it's underneath.
Yeah, and then underneath even more of all
Mm-hmm.
that, where they have like Nazi gold and like
Oh, the rat tunnels.
yeah, I mean,
Or the
stuff
CHUDs
like
are.
I'm sorry, what?
that. The chuds, Catholic chuds. Now I'm just thinking of like chuds with like mitre hats on, like
Lots
big-
of them, but they're small.
Oh my god. Oh man, we gotta get away
The
from
Cardinal of
this.
Juds.
The Godheart's really just a Chud.
Pope
Just one Chud.
All right. Okay. So I like that idea of like this outer citadel, inner sanctum, and then there is the God heart itself. Because I mean, again, it's a militaristic society. I imagine that they understand that we don't want anybody getting to this place.
I also, when you say tending to the God heart,
Yeah.
for some reason, I also picture this weird kind of like bonsai action of where it's just like the God also needs to be like given times of feast and famine.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's alive in some sense. Like
Oh, I think we originally called it like I think we said that the God heart itself was like a ritualistic dagger. Maybe the God heart
needs
itself.
blood.
Yeah, maybe it needs blood. Maybe it needs to be fed. I think that. Oh man, that's
like
and-
it.
Hold on. Well, no. I take it back. Well, actually, hold on. Let me just spitball this idea. Maybe in special cases, or maybe when it needs to be sated, they take it out, and that's what they use for the aruspicy rituals. So like normally they're like, yeah, whatever, keep it locked away. But then like on very special days, it's a matter of like, oh no,
we have
this
to go
isn't.
for this particular.
Yeah, and maybe instead of like animals that day, it's living people.
People, yeah.
It's a matter of we're not pulling out animal guts, we're pulling and maybe maybe when they do it that way, you get like even further into the future for
Yeah.
them, or like there's some kind of enhanced thing by using the actual God heart itself.
Maybe it's like they just conquered some place and it's the most important, like a really important person from that place, and that's the person they use for sacrifice.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what kind of spurs them to be as militaristic as they are.
They see further and further.
No, it's because their god hungers for it, and they can. And this god only deserves like the best of the best.
Okay, but I don't want like the 10,000 psychers a day sacrificed to the golden throne thing of 40K.
No,
like it's just a special.
Yeah,
little
like just the
morsels.
prince, or just
Right.
the queen from that place they conquered.
Once again, going up to plot hooks, it's just like give me one of the walking god hearts, like one of the people. It's just like I want to feast on this.
That's going to be a thing when the old world and the new world collide, for sure, 100%. Once the Caliphate understands that these are living gods, oh, you best believe they're going to be like hunting down the new world.
We're very interested in seeing this.
So there'll be like an inquisitor group that goes out to find them, to bring them back to the town,
And like keep like hunt them down alive and stuff like that.
to sacrifice them so they can look 1,000 years into the future.
Oh my
The boxes.
gosh, it's so fucking
And then the further they look into
crazy.
the future, they see things, but it's more and more possibilities. So then it's open to much more interpretation.
Yeah.
But it's dangerous, but
Yeah.
it's worth it to them.
All right, so yeah, I think this is a great idea that we're kind of pushing, where it's like it's not they're not militaristic because they're just we want to fight. It's like no, our god hungers and they need it.
They're like the Bene Gesserit
Also,
almost.
to get back into your thing, it's like the God Emperor in 40K. It needs however many psychers per day.
10,000.
No. The God Heart like hungers, and so maybe its stomach gets a little grumbly, like whatever. But they let it go because they understand feast and famine. So there's no like we need 1,000 God princes a day. It's like no, we can kind of but then of course there will be like one day where it's like, oh, there's a giant sinkhole, and I think we're starting to understand where they're coming
time.
from.
Oh, God's angry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's more than a little peckish at this point. I didn't know that our God could create a desolation storm, but
It's on its way.
that's the thing that's happening right
brought
now.
you to Moose Boosh.
It puts a lot more responsibility, too, on the God-pacted, prophets, essentially.
They're essentially caretakers and stuff like that to the God Heart as well. But like,
Yeah.
in a weird, like,
And
kind
their
of
culture.
abusive relationship.
Oh, and
type
going
way
in,
too.
and going into that back into the monastery and warrior-like monks, that does fit with this now fortress monastery, which is I love being able to say a fortress monastery. It's just
I like it.
fun.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
One thing that I wasn't sure if it would come up in the culture of everything is, do they know how far into the future their fate has been seen?
I think it's a fixed point in time.
So is there some sort of like day of celebration, or just like, oh, nothing's written up to this point, my fate is my own now?
Ooh, I like that.
That's a fun idea.
That would be a cool festival.
Which
it's like a birthday for them.
It also works
it's,
with the...
It's like a day of rebirth.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of working with the wave of like feast and famine once again, where it's just like, hey, everyone of my generation, nothing's written after this date.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. But I was thinking like the priest or the God Pact don't tell you what happens.
Yeah.
Like it's a matter of like they just do it, and then you're sitting there like, what? Why am I living this life? Like, what's going on? You know, that kind of thing. Although that is rather interesting. Although,
if they know about it.
I was going to say,
metaphorical,
does the general population know that there is a fixed point?
Time.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it varies by person, but it's a more metaphorical thing. So, like you're saying, they don't know specifically like what happens to you, but they know like beyond. This is as far as the prophet has seen for me.
I think not knowing and it being a secret would form a lot of complacency with the public, with the status quo. Whereas if it was known, it was just like, well, you guys only can see 20 years in the future. I'm going to live possibly 60 years. Fuck you guys.
Or in the opposite way, imagine like, oh, you're not alive in 20 years. Like in either future, you're not alive.
Wow.
You're not alive either way.
So we're giving you the bad one just because.
Right? Like imagine like, oh, in this one there's nothing, in the other one, he might be alive.
So he can't be important, so I can't assign him there.
Yeah. Again. Oh, and another idea that I had. So the God Pacted have to go through the trials, right, in order for them to become God Pacted. The idea that I had is this fortress, this citadel, you essentially have to work your way up to God Pacted status through military service, essentially. And then from there, you take the God Pact and you're either put into
The priests.
the priests or you put into the generals, essentially. And you basically work. So you're, no matter what, you're always around that citadel area. And then you get closer and closer to the heart, the closer you get to actually taking the God Pacted test and stuff like that.
So like paladins and clerics kind of thing.
Is that foreseen?
Kinda.
Like, is that so? Like, what for someone who can do that? Like, is it foreseen when they're given their fate that they can have that choice?
One of the things
I feel like
I
that's
think
longer than 20 years.
Yeah.
in some cases, yes, but obviously there's going to be like wunderkinds and stuff like that, where it's like, I'm only 17 and I'm already, like that kind of thing. Moreover, what I was also thinking is, imagine like, so the God Pacted are kind of like looking through these animal entrails and they're seeing these snippets, but they're also able to catch glimpses of what's happening around them and like looking around like, oh, like there's an empire attack. We just invaded this place. Like they're gathering
stuff. Yeah.
Right. They're gathering like snapshots and like, okay, you're seeing a very specific fixed point in time in life. What can I gain? What can I glean from that? And it's a matter of
Memory interpretation.
No. More than that, it's a matter of, I'm sorry I wasn't paying attention to your life so much, but there was a lot of stuff going around. Maybe I don't know, maybe you go this way, whatever.
I did notice that at 16. Nice.
Well, no.
Nice.
It's not like you get the fast forwarded version. It's imagine you're watching a YouTube video and rather than watching it at 4 times speed, you skip all the way to year 20 and you don't get anything in between.
We have to infer things like based on what you see.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's kind of what we're going with.
Yeah.
I would also, if it is kept a secret for certain ones who work their way up through the priesthood, if suddenly when they gain that knowledge, it's just like, it's always been my own after that point. Like,
Well,
would it leave you hollow?
then, right?
Would it leave you like fulfilled? Because you're like, oh, all of this was my action. It wasn't preordained.
And then at that point, I imagine that.
And now I have to go into preordaining other people's fates.
What's a crisis of faith at that point, right?
That's what I mean. I think at that point, it's probably the final test, right? They tell you the final secret. and that either like breaks you,
And you're not part of it anymore, or you are.
right, and you're like, well, I'm gonna be an absolver, now,
Right.
because I can do nothing else. That's actually an interesting idea as well. Imagine being like, oh yeah, there's like the majority of the original absolvers just come from failed God pacted.
And they may have a shared. Some of them may have a shared philosophy in that they value their own freedom, the freedom of their destiny, because they got to that point and realized they were in control.
There's a lot to it, guys.
A lot of meat on that sandwich.
Oh yeah. And on that meaty note, I think it's a good place to end. This has been the deep dive episode of the Caliphate of Feast and Famine Part 2. Thank you all for listening. As always, for Worldbuild with us, I am Rob Hilferty, here with Chris Prunty and Daniel Quinn. If you have any questions, if you want to correct us, if you just want to send us an email that gives us a cool idea or something you want to see in the future, you can always email us at worldbuildwithus@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment. We read all of those, mostly because there are none. But
100% reading rate.
yeah, exactly. Always there. Either way, we love you very, very much, and we will see you next week.
Smooches.
Shuds.